Okay, it's 8:30 on the dot, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Good morning, everyone. My name is Teresa Keurig, and I'm the UAGC Vice President of Faculty Affairs. Welcome to TLC 2024. For the past 10 years, Faculty Affairs has facilitated TLC, and on our 10th anniversary, we're excited to reflect on how this conference has evolved from looking inwards on UAGC-specific faculty and staff practices to looking outwards to the wider higher education community for ideas, problem solving, discourse, and most importantly, a productive discomfort that pushes us all to do better for our students and for each other. Today, we kick off the 10th annual TLC among colleagues from 75 higher education institutions and community partners. This diversity in attendees is a testament to TLC's dedication to being an accessible and welcoming conference. The opportunity we have here is the result of the time, commitment, intellect, and care of the TLC Steering Committee and generous speakers. The TLC Steering Committee is chaired by Haley Sampson, Associate Director in Faculty Affairs, and conference workstream leaders include UAGC faculty and staff, Doctors Teresa Handy, Jennifer Robinson, Tanya Mooney, Connie Lauer, Joe Kappa, and Jackie Bullis, Jennifer Graves, and Marissa Hammond. Before we start our work together today, please take a moment to thank these talented scholars and professionals in the chat or with some emoji love. And now I'm pleased to introduce our UAGC leaders whose expertise and perspective will prime us for learning and community building together. Dr. Blake Naughton is the Vice Provost, Academic Affairs, Teaching and Learning for Online Initiatives. You will hear from Blake later this afternoon as he introduces Spotlight speaker, Dr. Marshall Stewart at 2 p.m. Pacific. But now I'm pleased to introduce Dr. Gary Packard, the Senior Vice Provost for Online Initiatives, who is going to introduce our conference today. Gary, I turn the floor over to you.
Thank you, Teresa. I am so excited to be here, and I'm not going to repeat Teresa's list of the amazing work that has been done to put this together, but let me just add my thanks to Teresa and the entire committee for what they have done and how they have put this together. It's an amazing conference. I am so proud that our university hosts this conference every year, and I think it really is a testimony to our commitment to student success. And that's what I want to share with you this morning as we kick this off. So I'm going to share my screen. You can tell me by emojis if you want to. Any Ted Lasso fans out there? Couple. I'm seeing some laughter. I'm seeing some hearts scroll up and down. Can everybody see the slides? The title slide? We good?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. So there might be a little Ted Lasso in here. I'll tell you, if you like Ted Lasso and you want to use clips in presentation, you have to be very careful with your clips because of some of the language is not PG rated, we'll just say. But one of the key things about this show is it's a unique twist on sports and comedy that has a very interesting underlying message that the things that we say about what our organization is about is more than just a sign on the wall. And it has to do with how that sign becomes not what we do or what we say, but who we are. So for those of you not familiar with Ted Lasso in the show is an American football college coach who was hired by an English soccer team whose owner is secretly wanting him to fail. But he is the quintessential folksy football coach from the United States who has a quip for every sentence and a lot of good old down-home wisdom that he shares with his teams. But more importantly, he is portrayed as a character who is genuine and authentic and at his heart believes in humanity and people. And the show, in my mind, is really about perseverance and doing one's best in every endeavor, which to me sounds a lot like what we do in higher education, of helping students to persist and succeed at the endeavors and the goals that they have set for their lives. And so we're going to come back to the belief sign in a minute, but this was something he posted early in the series up on the wall that falls down and gets ripped up and gets destroyed, but it makes a reappearance, and we'll come back to that later. So remember the sign as we go through this conversation. So why focus on the concept of belonging is believing? For those of you who don't know, my academic background and expertise is in developmental psychology, and specifically in social developmental psychology. I'm influenced by a lot of social psychologists who looked at learning and cognitive development and how that happens in culture. And these two quotes, not by any psychologist actually, except for Brene Brown, the second quote. She actually is an academic and has published some books on leadership. Oprah Winfrey, has a quote that says, "You become what you believe." Now, it's not an Oprah Winfrey quote, but I like the picture, and it's attributed to her in this particular picture. And the essence of this is belief really is more about who you are than what you do. It's a character issue. It has something to do with how we develop the things that we find belief in. Rather scary thought, but on election day, isn't election day all about beliefs and how we believe in what is best, and how we're going to find a way to make our country and our nation the best it can be? A challenge given the current climate of today. But in education, I think the biggest thing that we can do to connect belief to belonging is be authentic with our students. The key to belonging is not what we do at the essence, but it's about who we are and how we help others become the best they can possibly be as well. The door to belonging, which is the theme of our conference, will not open all by itself. It is opened when we are authentic and vulnerable and accepting of everyone who walks in our door or signs into our classrooms online. And students pick up on that pretty quickly, even in the virtual world, even in a chat. They'll pick up on, is this person just going through the motions, or do they really believe in what they do? And I will argue as we go through this conference and as I go through this talk that belief equals belonging. It's hard to belong to an organization that doesn't believe in you. And the more we can get our students to believe, not only in who we are and what we bring, but in their own ability and their own capability and their own confidence, their level of self-acceptance, do we find the pathway to success and helping our students find the goals that they are after. I don't know of anyone who enters the university to fail. Students show up at our doors because they believe we have something to offer, and that belief will either play itself out in a way that will help them succeed or it won't. Sometimes students have to leave for reasons beyond our control, and I acknowledge that. Life happens, especially with our adult learners in online education. A baby comes, somebody gets sick, a new job pops up, we move, money runs out. There's lots of things that happen outside of education that cause a student to perhaps leave and go do something else with their life. What I worry about is when a student leaves because they lost their belief in us. And their belief in us is really, really important as we look at how we improve our educational processes and we help our students navigate the complexity of higher education. It's not easy. It starts with the FAFSA, which is not a fun thing to do. I remember taking now 6 different kids, two of Tina's, my partners, and 4 of mine, through the process of education, registrations and FAFSAs. And I think I know what I'm doing, and it's still not an easy process, right? It's not easy to navigate. Students believe we're going to help them through that gauntlet. They believe we're going to help them support and balance their life. We believe we will keep our promises. We have great things we put on our website that promise an awful lot. And how do we deliver on those promises? They believe that we are committed to the technological needs they need to be able to stay connected with us and fellow students. They believe that we will be vulnerable, that we will put our needs aside so that we can serve their needs first. And most importantly, students walk in believing that we believe in their success. We're not perfect. We're going to make mistakes. I have made tons of mistakes. I have regrets in students I have worked with, things I think I could have done better with this student or another, and I think of those students often. But when I was growing up, I had there was a plaque in my grandmother's house, my dad's mom, and it said, "Good, better, best. Never let it rest until your good is better and your better best." And so I tried to take those lessons that I learned about education and where I didn't measure up to where I would want to be and use them as motivation to try to do better next time. That plaque, by the way, still sits on a shelf in my office where I can see it when I'm working every day. And I think it is a good reminder that we can always do better, no matter how well we do. Belief is powerful. It is a driving force. It leads organizations and people to do amazing things. And it's not to be understated. But belief doesn't happen by itself. It needs to be nurtured. Just like anything in relationships, my belief in someone else, their belief in me, like love, has to be taken care of and supportive, and we need to give people accolades and get it reinforced all the time. It's a message that you just can't stop giving. But belief is strongest when it's embedded in a genuine relationship. My academic background, in addition to developmental psychology, is a master's in counseling, and I studied under a professor who was a student of Carl Rogers. And Carl Rogers is known for his statement that positive personality change only happens in relationship. He's considered the founder of talk therapy and humanist psychology. And what he offered was this idea: if I just give you genuine interest, if I truly respect who you are, not because of who I want you to be, but because of who you present today, and I let you be that person, that healing will happen. And I will argue the same thing is true of education. When we create the right relationships with our students and the students create the right relationships with their faculty and their staff and their university, amazing things can happen as they go through their career. So I believe that belonging is believing. The key to belonging sits in our belief of who our students are and who we are and how we help them to reach their goals. What humans believe has always been shaped by their groups. Think of religion, think of social groups, think of, we were talking about Ted Lasso, think of soccer teams, or in the United States, football teams. Watch a football game and watch how people transfer to the identity of the crowd when they get into a football game, be it a college game or a professional game. We really adapt to the identity of the groups that are important to you. I am much more likely to wear my Detroit Lions gear right now than I was when they were 0-16. How our groups perform and how we react to those performances makes a difference. But really, if I think about it, I should be just as proud to wear that Detroit Lions gear when they're 0-16 as when they're 16-0. Right? Belief should not be embedded in their performance, should be embedded in my belief of who they are and who we are as a group. These ideas, for those of you in education, I am sure you've studied Vygotsky at some point in your life, or you heard about him in some way, shape, or form. If not, he's a very influential theorist in education. And his emphasis, tied to my background, is on the idea that learning is more than just what happens internal to the human being. It's more than cognition. Learning is a cultural and social context. that how we learn, I can take the same person, put them in a positive social context, a different kind of culture, and they will develop differently than if I put them in another culture or another social context. So learning by definition is a cultural phenomenon, and it occurs in the interactions between others. In the case of teaching, the teachers and the learners with the learners. Vygotsky believed that children learn to function through assistance of more experienced people in the social environment. And that's the role that we take in education. And that experience also helps us to create an identity for those students, a sense of belonging in that you belong here in this classroom with us, and the belief that we are there to help them navigate the pathway, especially when they run into a brick wall and they find a lesson difficult or a course very hard to complete. Or they just find that life gets in the way and they don't have the time to spend their time on their studies that they want to. A lesson I learned in my doctoral studies, which was on this idea but related to leader and character development of military cadets, is that a person's leadership and character development is more influenced by their social context than by the development of their individual skills and behaviors. But we spend all our time in leadership programming focused on skills and behaviors and not social context. I would argue that in education, as well as in leadership and character development, we would be much better off focusing more on what happens in the context of our relationships in that culture than on the material or the tips or techniques that we teach people to help them improve. So I want to give you a moment to pause and reflect as I'm helping us to set up the conversations for this conference. What is the culture in your online workspace? And how is your relationship with your students? If you've got something to write on, keyboard to type notes on, or whatever, write down some notes. I mean, on a scale from 1 to 10, how would you rate the culture of your online coursework? Do students feel like they belong there, or are they struggling? And if they're struggling, where are they struggling? What is keeping them from feeling like they are fully a member of that classroom? And where is your relationship with your students? And how can you help develop better relationships with those students to help them feel like they belong and that you believe in them and their success? I'm going to pause for about 30 seconds to let you take a few notes. All right, let me introduce you now to another social developmental thinker that has influenced my thinking and I think is pertinent to what we are talking about in this conference. Starting with the premise that development cannot be separated from its social context, Urie Bronfenbrenner shows us that that social context is incredibly complex and incredibly layered. And when our students are in school, whether they are in a classroom in a brick and mortar environment or whether they are online in an online environment, school is one portion of a complex set of concentric circles that influence their behaviors and who they are. So if you look at this diagram, what you will see from Bronfenbrenner is school sits in more than one place. There's a microsystem school that sits in their personal experience in the classroom. But there's also schools in general, which is more the ecosystem of schools and how schools operate in our culture. What is different between, for example, going to a school environment at a large R1 university versus a small liberal arts education college? What is different in the way a school might look at online education versus in-person education may affect a student as much as the individual experience they have with a particular teacher or particular group of students in their classroom. So for adult learners, I encourage you to reflect on how does school fit in the social context of their lives. How are family, home, neighborhood, work, and so on having an influence on their ability to study and learn and belong at our university? At the University of Arizona, the Online Initiatives Office has made student success our North Star. It is the number one thing that we hope to improve and get better at. And I think these are the steps to student success. We start with the idea of belonging is believing, because believing leads to self-efficacy. If I believe, I am empowering myself to actually achieve the things that maybe I wouldn't achieve if I didn't believe. That self-efficacy is critical to confidence and persistence is what creates student success. Keeping students enrolled, keeping them engaged, helping them learn, helping move from step 1 to step 2, course 1 to course 2, all starts with this basic foundational beginning of, do they feel like they belong, and do they believe in themselves, and do we believe in them? So the theme of this culture is a great starting point for us to have conversations of how do we make a culture of belonging the core of who we are. Not just the theoretical label, not just something we do, but a practice that identifies who we are and how we use that relationship with others to transform lives. So let me tell you the story in numbers. These are 3 key numbers that are the ones I am using to help guide how we think about doing those steps that I just talked about. 45%. That is the number that we have set for the University of Arizona Global Campus as the goal of first-year retention for this fiscal year. We're about a quarter of the way through this fiscal year. We're lagging behind this number a little bit. And I'm challenging the team, and I'll challenge all of the people at UAGC in this conference to think about how what you're going to learn here will help you to get us to 45%. Think of 45% as not a goal, but think of it as individual students who are taking classes today that we are going to find a way to keep in class and who do not leave. Make it personal. And I'll talk about that here in just a second. 9,000 is the number of students we want to graduate from UAGC this year. We graduated just under 8,000 last year. 9,000 is a pretty aggressive goal. We're projected to be about 270 students short of that goal right now. So the same question. Persistence is key. How do we look at persistence using those steps of believing is belonging, and belonging leads to my self-efficacy, and that self-efficacy creates the confidence, and the confidence creates my willingness to persist and complete. So how do we get that number up? But the yellow number is the one that keeps me awake at night. The yellow number, it represents the 60% of students who don't persist, who don't continue, who don't retain in our university. What is it that we could have been doing differently to keep 1 student, 2 students, 10 students, 100 students in school so that number will be smaller? Are there students that you are working with today who are at risk of being in that 60% number? And my question and challenge for you is, how do you need to show up differently for that student so they feel like they belong? I like it when things come together. This conference was not created for this purpose, but this conference couldn't have been better created for this purpose. And so my question to you, as we prepare to listen to a lot of great speakers and participate in a lot of great discussions, is how can you use this question? If belonging is believing, what do you believe about education that will unlock a student's sense of belonging? To ponder that question as you go through. I'll be back with you again at the closing, and you'll probably see me off and on in different sessions throughout the conference. And I hope you will join me, because I'm going to come back to this question when we close. I want to know what you've learned and what you've come up with and what ideas you have about how do you, not esoterically, how do we as a group, but me personally, how do I think of it that way? How do I change my belief about education so I can unlock the sense of belonging in more students? So maybe some takeaways. How will you help your students succeed? How will you help your students believe that they belong and that will succeed? How do you help your students believe enough that they sign up for the next class? How do you help your students believe they'll persist enough so they can see themselves walk across that stage at commencement? And how do we recognize that we have students that always haven't had people believe in them? We have faculty who always haven't had people believe in them. How do we repair that pain that's been caused by prior unbelief and the sense they don't belong and they see themselves differently in our environment? So those are my challenges and reflection questions for you as you go through this. So let me close by bringing us back to Ted Lasso. Remember the sign, the big yellow believe sign that was on the wall? If you're a Ted Lasso sign, you know what happened. Ted Lasso fan, you know what happened to that sign. It gets ripped into pieces. So let me show you a little video clip on the rest of the story so you can see how ripped up and broken pieces can become whole again.
Gary, I'm not hearing your sound if you wanted to restart it. Sorry
All
about
right.
that.
Nope, thanks for telling me. Nobody was
Yeah.
watching to see. I don't know why it didn't. I tested it earlier and it worked fine. Of course it did.
Of course.
I have to remember where to go to make sure the sound is playing.
Yeah, when you click share screen, there's a little box to check that says share computer sound at the bottom.
Yeah, that's what I thought, and I thought we had it checked, but let me unshare and reshare. Sorry about that, everyone.
It's worth waiting for.
This is
Kind of,
CNC. This is how it goes. We are
yeah,
nothing if not flexible.
yep. All right, we'll try one more time, everyone. Fingers crossed.
We believe, Gary. We believe.
We believe.
Well, fellas, we got our work cut out for us in the second half.
It's working.
But, I'll get to all that in a minute. No, right now, all I want to do is let you gentlemen know what an absolute honor it's been to be your coach. Getting to work with y'all these last 3 years has truly been one of the greatest experiences of my life. I've loved getting to know each and every single one of you. Learning all about the men you were and getting front row seat to see the men y'all have become. And I want to thank you for your patience with me. When I showed up here, I didn't know one thing about soccer. But now I know at least one thing about football. I'm just so gosh dang proud to be a part of this team, And I love you guys. If y'all play hard, play smart, play together, and just, just do what y'all do. And we'll go out with a peace of mind knowing we did our best. Right? That we tried, yeah? All right. Anybody else have something to say? Good. Yeah, Sam, we got. And there it is. Number 4. Yeah. All right, let's bring it in. I know folks like to say there's no place like home. That's true. Man, there ain't a whole lot of places like AFC Richmond either. Campbell.
Richmond on free. 1, 2, 3, Richmond!
I hope you have a great conference. Thank you.
Gary, thank you so much for kicking us off. I appreciate that. Huge Ted Lasso fan, and I couldn't be more pumped up for the 10th annual TLC. I thought I couldn't be more pumped up than I was this morning, and now I am. So thank you. Thank you for that. Appreciate it. All right, everyone. My name is Haley Sampson, and I am the UAGC Teaching and Learning Conference co-chair, and I am the Associate Director of Faculty Engagement in the UAGC Faculty Affairs Department. And I'm here to take the thoughts that Gary has shared with us and put those into action by working together with you all to define our conference learning outcomes. So, as Gary shared, conferences are critical learning experiences because people learn most effectively together. So TLC is continuing the social constructivist conference tradition we started last year by co-constructing conference learning outcomes during our kickoff session. We are confident that we'll go farther together when we share goals. So over the next 15 minutes or so, we are going to work through several simple but thought-provoking exercises that will culminate in our collectively identifying 3 learning outcomes for the 2024 Teaching and Learning Conference. Want to make sure everyone can see my screen and see that QR code. Please grab your phone and maybe something to take notes. And I can tell that you can see my screen because you're already jumping in. Thank you so much. So let's get started. First, we invite you to reflect on the 6 topics related to belonging that served as guides for the TLC 2024 call for proposals. You see these 6 topics identified here. They are definitions of belonging in higher education, barriers to and opportunities for creating belonging in higher education, operational solutions to issues of belonging, discourse practices that foster intellectual belonging, and 2 more, tangible approaches to measuring belonging. And discipline-specific research on the concept of belonging. So we're asking everyone to take a moment to review this slide and jump in and indicate which of these topics are most pertinent to you, to your learning goals, again, by using that QR code or going to the site at the top of the screen. All right, everyone, I am seeing some off-the-charts numbers here. Give everyone just a quick minute. Thank you all for jumping in so quickly. I appreciate that. Okay. So it looks like the top 2 topics that TLC attendees are most focused on are barriers to and opportunities for creating belonging and, tangible approaches to measuring belonging. So let's all make a note. That's barriers to and opportunities for creating belonging and tangible approaches. I am making a note because we are going to need this information in a minute. Okay. So now that we know the top two topics that TLC attendees are most focused on, let's think about these topics a little more closely through the lens of Bloom's taxonomy. Likely, many of you are familiar with Bloom's, but to refresh everyone's understanding, Bloom's is a framework that helps teachers and learners identify levels of competence with skills or concepts. The Bloom's verbs are actions that signal those levels, and they comprise a hierarchy that ranges from lower order to higher order thinking. So, for example, from recalling a fact to creating new knowledge. In our second exercise, we invite you to use this Bloom's hierarchy to reflect on your own level of competence with the two topics that we've identified together. And again, we identified the top two topics as barriers to and opportunities for creating belonging in higher education and tangible approaches to measuring belonging. All right, so for our first topic, based on Bloom's taxonomy, please identify the current level of your understanding of topic number 1, which again was barriers to and opportunities for creating belonging in higher education. And I'm not watching the chat, so if there are any questions, someone let me know. Okay, we're jumping in. So I'm seeing evaluate, apply, and understand. We'll give everyone just about 30 more seconds to choose your level of competence with this, with learning more about barriers to and opportunities for creating belonging in higher education. I'm seeing apply is coming out ahead. Give it about 10 more seconds. And we're going to do this same exercise for the next topic that we selected, which was the tangible approaches to measuring belonging. Okay, so we're going to call it. TLC attendees are identifying that their learning is at the apply level in Bloom's taxonomy for barriers to and opportunities for creating belonging, for their learning about barriers to and opportunities for creating belonging. Okay, let's do the same exercise. I am getting a notice that says my page is unresponsive. Did it switch to the next?
Not yet. Maybe just one more try.
Okay. Oh, I think I'm back.
Yep.
All right. So same exercise. Based on Bloom's taxonomy, please identify the current level of your understanding of our second topic, which is tangible approaches to measuring belonging. I love all the little emojis at the bottom. Okay. I am still getting a message that my page is unresponsive. So, oh, and it clicked. It did it. Okay. I'm making a note here. All right, understand is coming out on top with almost half of us feeling that our level of learning around tangible approaches to measuring belonging is sitting right at the understand level. And Teresa, since my screen froze, I just want to make sure that I jotted down the correct level of Bloom's that we are at for topic 1. Is it apply?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, everyone. So, any last takers on identifying your current level of understanding of the second topic? Looks like understand is still coming out on top. Okay. So next, we want to start crafting our learning outcomes. Let's remember that for our first topic, which was the barriers to and opportunities for creating belonging in higher education, we determined as a group that our level of understanding is at the apply level. So applying means we can use information in new situations. And at the end of this conference, we're aiming to improve or increase our learning to the next level, which is analyze. So please use this slide to submit a learning outcome using the analyze level of Bloom's hierarchy, and share that with us. And then we will be able to give thumbs up and vote how appropriate for today, to determine our first learning outcome. Take a moment. I know drafting learning outcomes is not something that people frequently do on the fly, so please take a moment. Gonna look at the chat here. Okay. So again, we're looking for examples of learning outcomes using the Bloom's level of analyze to help us learn more, excuse me, to help us learn more about barriers to and opportunities for creating belonging in higher education. Okay. I see two outcomes. Identify the barriers that most affect one's ability to learn, and experiment with actionable opportunities to build belonging in online higher education. I also see that participants are typing. Oh, here we go. At the end of this conference, participants will be able to distinguish between barriers that students face to belonging in higher education. Okay. Participants will analyze a current course they teach to consider barriers to belonging. All right, those responses are coming in quickly. I'm going to give it about 10 more seconds. Learn how to apply and analyze creative approaches to fostering belonging in a virtual classroom. Okay, everyone, I am going to click to our next screen to where we will vote, and you can vote by giving on your screen the learning outcome that you identify with most, that makes most sense to you, a thumbs up. I see 10, 11, 12 votes. Okay, they're coming in fast. And then we will see the result here in just about 10 seconds. There's 283 of us in the room, and we've got 30 plus votes, so keep on voting. Going once, going twice, going 3 times. Okay, so our result for this learning outcome from Blake: learn how to apply and analyze creative approaches to fostering belonging in a virtual classroom. And we're still gaining votes. Okay, thank you all for participating. We're going to move on to our next topic. Same exercise, except we're going to use the second topic that we identified, which again is tangible approaches to measuring belonging, to craft learning outcomes that will take us from the understand level in Bloom's taxonomy, which is where we can explain ideas or concepts, to the apply. So how can we apply what we understand and use that information in new situations? Please submit your learning outcomes. And it looks like we're going to go a few minutes over our time here today, so I hope you all can hang in, but I understand that there are sessions starting in about 15 minutes. All right, participants are typing away. Okay, learn to interrogate efficacy and proximally measure different approaches to fostering belonging in a virtual classroom, to apply learning to short-term and long-term goals for future success. Hoping for just a few more submissions and then we will vote. Start putting into practice what is learned on paper to in-person actions, both at work and personal life. Practice makes perfect. Okay. Use knowledge of challenges and barriers to apply solutions to foster belonging in virtual classrooms. Participants will pilot a way to measure belonging in a course they teach. Love that call to action after we just heard from Gary. Be able to identify and apply tangible measures and strategies related to fostering a sense of belonging. And one more, ensure students with the skills necessary to effectively measure and interpret belonging, within higher ed settings, fostering environments that support and enhance student engagement and success. Okay, let's vote. Develop feedback opportunities for students, faculties, and stakeholders to co-create change. Love the co-creation. That's what we're doing now. All right, everyone, keep those votes coming in. All right. Let's look at our results. Heather, thank you. Your learning outcome, use knowledge of challenges and barriers to apply solutions to foster belonging in a virtual classroom, is the second learning outcome for the TLC 2024 conference. Okay, everyone, one last exercise. We know that TLC is more than a conference. It's a learning community. And so let's work together to craft a learning outcome designed to address or designed to create that sense of belonging to the TLC learning outcome. You can start submitting your proposed learning outcomes now. And then we will vote on those. I see that participants are typing away. You can give everyone just a few more seconds of reflection time. While you are typing, please know that we together can achieve this learning outcome through our conference platform that has built-in discussion boards. You can schedule virtual meetups, participate in icebreakers and session polls. Those are all ways that we can work together as a learning community to achieve the learning outcome that we will decide upon here shortly. And if you aren't excited enough about this opportunity to build a learning community, please make a note that the TLC attendee with the most engagement in the conference platform is recognized at our awards ceremony on the final day of the conference. Which, speaking of, we will revisit these learning outcomes on the final day of the conference. Gary mentioned that at the awards ceremony. So keep your notes handy. I will post the 3 learning outcomes in our conference platform for further discussion. And so I see some great options here. Actively participate and engage in each session, combining our collective knowledge and interest in belonging, initiate reciprocal learning, lots about engagement, and collaborate to develop a shared action plan, and analyzing key barriers to belonging. So let's go ahead and vote. Get those votes in, everyone. All right, I see those votes coming in. So we will look at the final result here shortly. Again, these learning outcomes will be posted in our conference platform. Before you go today, please add our session with Dr. Marshall Stewart, the Executive Vice President for External Engagement and Chief of Staff at Kansas State University, to your agenda. Today at 2 p.m. Pacific time, Dr. Stewart will teach us more about the mission of land-grant institutions and how that mission is aligned to and continues to evolve to support belonging in learning communities. All right, everyone, let's see our third and final learning outcome. And it is to initiate reciprocal learning, sharing, and listening among colleagues by sharing ideas from my experience and affirming others' ideas during sessions. So thank you all for your time today. The 10th annual TLC is officially kicked off. Let's make belonging more than a theme. Let's make it an experience. Thank you all for being here.